And tonight's special guest joining us on the panel is BionicDance. Also, her street name is Kate, or Skate Killer.
Who? I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. But no, she talks about going out skating quite a bit sometimes on her channel, and she talks about atheism and just getting things basically right. I agree with her on quite a lot of subjects. I mean, I don't agree on everything. Of course, I don't agree with myself half the time. So hey, we're all in the same camp on that. So, but I would like to introduce, of course, BionicDance. Welcome to. And thank you for joining us tonight on the show. I had a list of questions here. I know you've talked about this on your channel, but how did you come across the name BionicDance, just for our listeners who may not know?
Well, it's actually a reference to one of my favorite cartoon shows from the 1980s, The Bionic Six. Whenever they would power up their bionic powers, they have this wrist gauntlet thing that they put a ring into. But they couldn't just, put the ring into the gauntlet. They had to do this martial arts swirling dance maneuver thing to do it first. They would shout, "Bionics on!" And then they would, do that funky dance maneuver. And every time they would do it, I was like, hey, look, they're doing the Bionic dance. And seriously, and I'm an animator by trade. That's what I went to school for, and it's something I've been trying to make a career out of for a while now. And I figured if I ever had my own animation company, that'd be a great name for it, because, Bionic 6 was an animated show. I'm an animator. BionicDance Animation would be a great name for an animation company. Right. It's a reference to an animated show. So that's where the name came from. My YouTube channel was originally going to be an animation channel before it became a platform for atheism.
These things happen.
That's where the name came from.
Oh, very good, very good. A couple questions here. Were you ever religious, or did you come out of religion at all?
I'm not really, no. I mean, my mother is, or was, or kind of Jewish, I guess. I mean, culturally Jewish, was raised that way. And, I guess we kind of celebrated Hanukkah half-heartedly. But we were never really religious in any way. My dad, on the other hand, was raised Italian Catholic and rejected that long before they ever adopted my ass. So, basically I was raised kind of like culturally being drawn from one side to the other. But we were never really religious ever. Not really. And I tried one thing or another as I was growing up, and it all just seemed so silly and ridiculous to me. And I saw my friends going to church and all this stuff. I mean, the closest we ever came to being religious, we went very briefly to a Unitarian church, and no. So, no, I was never religious in any way. Not really.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. We all find our way out of it, or we're very fortunate, like some of us here on the show, have never had to be experienced being tortured, mentally by religion. Where do you get the inspiration for some of your videos? I mean, you go after people like on Fox News and everything. We had quite a flurry of comments on just the video I posted for your appearance here on the show. You gathered quite a lot of comments, because of the fact is that you go after Fox News and things like that, and we go after Fox News here on the show quite a bit, and GOP, as it were. Why do you do it, though? I mean, I understand why I do it and everything. Can you just get a little background on yours?
That's kind of two different questions in a way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when I started making videos, I was basically just refuting religious arguments and religion, largely because I saw it as a very destructive force, and I still do. And also because I just plain thought it was wrong, incorrect. Not wrong in a moral sense, although I kind of see it that way too, but mostly just because I thought it was factually incorrect.
Right.
Now I'm more in kind of a self-defense mode. I see religion as a destructive force, as something that harms people, something that really gets in the way of freedom and life in general, and I would really like that to stop. Now, I guess it's okay if people want to be religious, if that's who and what they are, but I would prefer it if it would stop like getting in the way of other people's lives. So in a way, I guess I'm making my videos more now than the way I was before, more now in kind of a self-defense mode, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos that you kind of incorporate the atheism movement into the videos. I mean, the message is very clear. I mean, unless some people are not.
Well, but the thing is that's changed how I've made my videos, because it used to be that I would just take an idea of religion and find the facts to refute it, find the arguments to refute it. But now I've made about 800 videos at this point. I've said everything that can be said about religion conceptually, I think. So now what I do is I go I search for religion-related videos on YouTube.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Actually, you skipped my question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I search for religion-related videos on YouTube or on news websites, and I download those and talk about why religious people are messing up our lives, are making our lives worse, and what we can do to stop that. So that's kind of what's inspiring my YouTube videos now, as opposed to what I used to do in the past.
Are you going to be coming out with any more of those animation videos? The Kinnear Baxter on the space station?
That actually wasn't Kinnear Baxter. It was the same 3D model, but her name was Sandra.
Sandra, okay. My mistake.
That was Rational Station, and maybe. Right now I'm actually working on something else called Ray Gun Rebecca. It's completely unrelated to atheism. It's more of a sci-fi adventure thing. It may be about 6 to 8 minutes long when it's done. I don't know. We'll see. But once that's finished, I may do another Rational Station. We'll see.
I was going to ask you, when you make your animations, I mean, that looks very involved. I am a very amateur. I have no knowledge of how animations are really made, as it were. I mean, I know there's a lot of stick figure and 3D modeling. How long does it take you to do about just a minute of the animation to get done?
That depends on so many factors. It depends on how many characters are in the scene, whether or not there's any lip sync that needs to be done, like if there's any dialogue, that kind of thing. Depends on how many special effects are going on. That's almost impossible to say.
Okay. Well, I thought, let's just say, let's just take a simple scene, just like someone just taking a walk, just like 1 minute. They're just walking towards a door, not speaking or anything, just walking towards the door and about to reach for it. How long would you say something like that would take?
Let's see. Okay. Well, walking towards a door doesn't take very long. I mean, it's just steps, arms swinging, rib cage moving, and then rendering it. Well, okay, again, depends on the environment, though. I mean, how many lights you have, whether or not you're actually rendering the shadows out. If the shadows are ray traced or just shadow mapped. So again, it depends on a lot of factors, but you could probably have that done a minute's worth. Gosh, maybe a day and a half. Depends.
Wow, that's.
Well, it's a minute of video. I mean, a minute could take a really long time. If it, and you probably wouldn't have someone walk for an entire minute.
Right, I can imagine not. Yeah. No, I was just kind of curious. I mean, obviously they wouldn't be a whole minute unless it was a really long hallway. I was just kind of give our listeners an idea of how complicated this is. I'm a big cartoon watcher. I've been watching cartoons since I was a little kid, and I still enjoy them today. And a lot of the cartoons nowadays are computer-based animation. I was always an impatient child going, why does it take them so long? But there's a very good reason why this takes very long, especially now, nowadays, even with computers, because there's so much involved to get this done. I have one more quick question, and I'm going to turn over to the floor for everybody else. Is there any other channels on YouTube that you like to go to visit on a regular basis that you enjoy watching?
I'm sure there are, but gosh, I'm being put on the spot at the moment, and it's hard to think of any just off the top of my head. I have been watching The Young Turks a lot lately, and I also have been watching Mr. Repzion lately. Not that either of those two need a shout out from me. They've got way more subs than I do.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, see, one of the things is anyone who's been to my channel lately knows that I have epilepsy right now. It's something that's kind of new. It's due to some brain damage, and part of the problem that comes with that is memory issues. And so I'm finding it very difficult to even remember the names of some of the channels I go to. So
I call that old age.
Unfortunately, in my case, it's not. It's literally brain damage. So
how did that happen? By the way, did you fall or something?
They don't know how it happened, but I can tell you right now what triggers it is certain kinds of things that, like foods, actually, that inflame blood vessels. We've discovered that caffeine and pork products will do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it sucks if you love bacon.
Yeah, I miss bacon. I miss it a lot.
Oh, the candy, the meat that is candy. Okay,
I know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Dan used to say on the channel, bacon, it'll change your life. I'm going to open up the floor for some questions. Joe, did you have a question for BionicDance?
Oh, I've got a few questions.
Okay.
First of all, I'm sorry to hear about your recent health issues, but I'm also happy to hear that you are a fan of Bionic 6, because I used to watch that when I was a kid. I had a huge crush on the blonde girl on that cartoon. I remember the theme song. It goes, Bionic 6. Ooh, 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 ooh.
Yeah, I love that
Great show. But anyway, I watched a whole bunch of your videos this week, and I watched one this afternoon, actually, and I thought it would be funny to ask you about how many hours a day do you spend hoping there is no God?
Hardly any, really. I mean, I'm pretty sure there isn't one, so I just spend a lot of time not even thinking about it.
Right, yeah. No, so zero then.
Hey, Joe, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask BionicDance?
Yeah, you make, some of my favorite videos that you make are when you grab someone else's YouTube video and they're saying something really stupid and you chop it up and you respond to them and you totally pwn them. I was wondering, do you send them a link when you do that? Do they respond?
That's a great question.
If they do respond, do you have any epic or memorable responses you've gotten?
Well, I do try to post my video as a response to theirs, but generally speaking, I don't send them a private message with a link to my video. Although a lot of times they'll have comments and ratings disabled on their video, which is kind of cowardly, I think. But, so I can't actually send them my video as a response, so there's not a lot you can do there, which is kind of a shame. But they have sent me some responses. Some of them have. Unfortunately, some people have also kind of become obsessed when they've gotten a video response. There are a couple of people I could name. I don't know if I should name them or not.
Oh, go ahead. I don't. We will.
Well, I mean, I don't want to give them the attention. Is the thing,
Okay, sure.
But there are two people I could name where I've responded to them once, and the next thing I know, every video they make gets posted as a response to one of my videos, whether it has anything to do with them or not. And so, there's ups and downs to letting someone know that you've responded to their video.
Oh, yeah.
Because they can take it quite personally, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Where you're responding to an issue they raised, and they're like, how dare you, I shall now have a vendetta against thee, so...
How dare you contradict my viewpoint, because my viewpoint is my viewpoint, and even though I'm trying to force my beliefs on you, you're not right to have other beliefs or whatever. I guess these people are weird.
So there's reasons to and reasons not to send someone your video response.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but do they generally find out about it or not really, or you only know if they respond to you?
I send them the response and then forget about it. If they reply, then they reply. If they don't, they don't. Okay. More often than not, if I've responded to somebody, I'm not actually responding to them. I'm making a message for the world to see. Hopefully someone learns from it. Hopefully they don't. But usually the person I'm responding to is a douchebag, and I don't expect to change their mind at all. I'm hoping to change someone else's mind when they see the video, but not theirs.
Right, exactly. Awesome. Today I watched your American Atheist 50th Anniversary Convention video.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
unfortunately, that one was a little screwed up technically, but
it was still good. I think you might be onto something. What do you say we open a chain of fondue and archery restaurants? I mean, it could be like the Hunger Games.
Here comes the cheese. Bing!
Instead of fighting to the death, we could fight over melted cheese. Like,
this is not the fondue you're looking for. I'm sorry, that's a different show.
But really, while you were there at the convention, is there anyone that you met that really made your day? And do you have any amusing story that didn't make it into your video?
Oh man, an amusing story that didn't make it into the video? Probably, but man, nothing that leaps immediately to mind.
Okay.
But there was one guy that I met. Oh man, I'm trying to remember his last name now, but his first name's Mark. I had no idea it was him until he said something, and it turned out that he played Willow Ufgood's son in Willow, the movie Willow.
Oh.
And I was like,
really?
No way, that was you? And he's like on the Austin Atheist Freethinker board or something. I think he's like technical crew for the whatever show it is that Matt Dillahunty's on, Brain Not Work Now, Atheist Experience, that's it.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, no way, that's awesome. But I mean, there were a lot of people I met. I met Zom Gets Chris, and I'm not 100% certain how I feel about this, but I actually met Richard Carrier at one point. Oh. And I met Aaron Ra, and he's awesome.
I've heard that.
I met. Oh wow, total brain cramp.
There was Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, Matt Dillahunty. Yeah,
and Seth Andrews.
Him. But I'm thinking of the British guy. Brain Not Work Now.
Richard Dawkins.
This is the memory issues I'm talking about.
Richard Dawkins.
No, he wasn't there.
Oh. I knew he was British.
Well, yeah. No, I'm thinking of a YouTuber. Initials. He goes by initials here.
Oh, DPR Jones?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, DPR Jones.
Yes.
Man, see, this is one of the things. It's like the files are all there in my head, but the filing system is completely broken. This is one of the problems with the where the cavernous malformation is in my head. So the language system of my brain. So.
Yeah, I have the same problem trying to find a single file on my computer too. I can never find anything. But I know you're the computer you're talking about in your head. My computer is so all over the place. So. This is my brain extended, so that's all messed up as it is.
But no, so I met a lot of really great people there. But I think meeting the guy who played Willow Ufgood's son was like, no way, that's awesome. So
that is awesome. Yeah, it looks like you had a really good time. I'm envious. A lot of Twitter atheists ask me, like, are you coming to Austin? Are you coming to Austin? Because if you're coming, I'll go and we can meet up, we can hang out. I'm like, oh, I would totally love to go to that, but that's like a lot of money for me right now.
Yeah. Let's get Dave's question here. Dave, you have a question for BionicDance?
Well, first, before it gets lost in all the comments in the chat room, I think Dawkins Dog wanted to ask what kind of software you use for your animation.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask that earlier.
Yeah, 3ds Max is what I use. Formerly 3D Studio Max.
Okay, I think I've heard of that.
It's now owned by the same people who make Maya, although I've never used Maya. I really should go to Maya because that's what a lot of the industry professionals use these days. But I got started on 3ds Max. I'm very familiar with it, so that's what I use.
Oh,
nice.
Very good. Your questions then, Dave?
Yeah, so I was wondering, how did you come upon being more vocal about your atheism? What spurred you to create the channel and start speaking out like that?
Oh, that's a good question. What really was the tipping point?
Well, originally I created the channel to show off my animation, but I started talking about atheism, I suppose, because I started seeing some of the other atheist YouTubers, and they kind of inspired me. I was like, these people do have a point, and they're points that really do matter to me quite a bit. And I think that I can present the similar points in other ways and in more entertaining ways, because at first I started animating them. I started by making Rational Station my animated version, although because animation takes a really long time, I started appearing on camera instead, because, well, let's face it, I can make videos faster that way. But I suppose the main reason I started making the videos is because religious people do tend to mistreat a lot of people. And I mean, I don't know if, I assume everyone knows I'm a lesbian. Religious people tend to have a bug up their butt about LGBT folks.
Yes, they do.
And, you know, so I was like, well, again, self-defense. I've mentioned this before here on this show, is that we need to defend ourselves against religious people mistreating other folks. So I guess that was a large part of the tipping point as well, was, you know, I needed to defend myself against religious intrusion into my life.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't belong there. I mean, I've never understood why religion feels that they have a need or even a right to push their way into our bedrooms, for example. I mean, who you love is none of their goddamn business. We're going to take some quick questions from the... Oh, one more question here. Actually, my producer, she's been enjoying your videos along with me. She wants to ask you a quick question.
This more or less has to do with how you have a problem with, you know, remembering things, because as a teenager, I do have troubles, but I think it's more or less to deal with my ADHD, which I've been recently diagnosed with, and I have troubles remembering things, but how do you deal with that? How do you remember things yourself?
Well, generally speaking, I don't. I mean, fortunately, it's limited to very specific things. The damage to my brain is in the left mesial temporal lobe, which is actually the language center of the brain. So if I don't use a word, or if I don't see a person for a very long amount of time, basically their identity will get displaced from their name, essentially. So it's like if there's a word and a concept that I haven't used in a very long time, I'll remember the concept, but not the word that means that concept. Or if I know a person, I'll remember like who they're married to, the job they do, where they live, how I met them, all of this stuff, but their name, cannot remember it. But everything else I remember just fine. It's just names and words like that get all jumbled up, and I can't remember them. And it's not like I'm mixing up, you know, well, this word and that definition get mixed up with that word and that definition. It's just I can't remember, you know, which words and which definitions are connected to each other, that kind of thing. So generally speaking, if I want to remember something, I need access to the internet. You know, or I need to have a friend nearby where I can say, who is so-and-so again? You know, it's like I'll describe somebody to them and they'll say, oh, yeah, that's your friend Robin or something, you know, which is one of the reasons why I actually kind of want that Google Glass device. I mean, it seems like such an extravagance.
Oh, yeah. That'd be nice.
But to be able to look someone up just by like tapping your head and going, okay, Glass, who the heck is this person? You know, I kind of want that.
Yeah,
but,
I have the same problem. I can remember phases. Names have always escaped me. I mean, I have to keep asking Joe his name every time he shows up on the show. I'm just kidding. But
He calls me Jim all the time.
yeah, I call him Jim. My daughter had one last thing to say you wanted to say.
Well, back to the recognizing a face or not remembering the name. I know that feeling. I personally cannot remember a name. It takes me at least a month to remember a person's name, somebody that I meet that's new. I mean, like you said, recognizing their face, all these features about them, that's easier, but the names, it's difficult to remember names or certain, like, words or definitions and all that stuff. It is difficult.
Well, I wish I had a trick or a hint for you. I've only been dealing with this for about a year myself, because this damage to my head meats is kind of new. But I don't. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't worry. I was I was only diagnosed with ADHD a few months ago.
That's you're dealing with that.
Yeah,
issue,
that's what I'm dealing with.
All right, we're going to take some questions from the chat room. Did anybody have some questions that they wanted to ask BionicDance in the chat room there?
All these people showed up to hear her speak. Now is your chance to ask her a question. What did you always want to ask her?
Yes. What did you always want to ask her? This is the dancing portion of the show. This is where we take off our soft shoe and we just dance around the channel.
Apparently, I'm just not that interested.
Hey, so not being raised in a religious household, how do you deal with talking to people who were, and how do you walk that fine line between offending them and
what was that noise?
Not.
What was that noise?
Well, I also kind of lucked out in a way in that I was raised in Vermont where people, recently they did some sort of study where they discovered Vermont is the least religious state in the United States. So I never really had to deal with fundies that much. So not offending people, never really that much of an issue for me. I mean, I suppose I may have at some point, but they never really had much power where I grew up. So, if I offended somebody, they probably just had to swallow it. And then I moved to Seattle, where it's pretty much the same deal. I suppose if I ever went somewhere to like the Midwest or the South, I might be in for a rude awakening someday, but I've never really had to watch my mouth.
We did have a question in the chat room from Dawkins Dog. He wanted to know, do you ever have funny debates with people on Facebook, or do you just do it over YouTube?
It's happened on Facebook, certainly. They don't get all that heated. I mean, YouTube is actually a lot more heated than Facebook ever gets. I suppose if I joined more integrated groups on Facebook, it might get a little more heated. There are groups that are allegedly, atheist versus theist kind of groups, but they're moderated pretty heavily, and they tend to swing a lot more atheist than theist. I suppose probably for the same reason that there aren't as many fundies on YouTube anymore, because they keep getting their butts kicked.
Ain't that the truth? And of course, then there's the false flaggers out there because they realize that we've got the better argument, and then they just go, "Oh, well, I don't like what you have to say, and I'm going to false flag you." Do you have to come across that very often?
I have never had one of my videos false. No, wait, I take that back. I have had my videos false flagged before, but never successfully. Because there have been people who've tried to flag my videos for like copyrighted content or stolen content, but fortunately, one of the classes I took when I was at the Art Institute was copyright law, and I know fair use rather well. And so I've been able to combat every flag that's ever been handed to my videos. Every flag.
Good. I came across a couple of those myself because I used some music from Apple's GarageBand, and YouTube goes, "Well, you're not allowed to use this because this is copyrighted music." And I saw that video that you put out about that actually, and it's like, well, this music here is provided by GarageBand, and I actually had to do some extra looking up on that to show that the video or the audio rather was free and clear, and it took them a few days, but they did back down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can cite U.S. Copyright Act, Title 17, Chapter 1, Section 107, Fair Use, and explain that you've used something for criticism or comment.
Or satirical?
Yep, satirical, that kind of thing. Usually you can get away with it on YouTube, especially if the other party does back down, and generally they do, especially if you throw the legalese at. Like, I am so out of my depth.
Your audio cut out there for a moment. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, people will back down, just from the legalese because they'll realize, oh gosh, I'm completely out of my depth.
Yes. some people, depends on what business you're in, but some people will, they hear the word lawyer and they're going to go, oh, whatever you say, you know, just hearing the word lawyer is enough for some people. But some other people, they need to have more. They need to actually be told these legal ease there. We're going to see if we can grab one more from the chat room here. Wise Guy in the chat room says, I have been accused of being a militant atheist, although nobody knows if I am. If they ask me, have you had similar experiences, and how are your relationships with religious people?
Well, I mean, I'm not even sure what a militant atheist really even is. I mean, okay, sure, I argue pretty strongly for atheism, and I would love it if everyone was an atheist, because I frankly think atheism is the truth. But at the same time, lately I've softened a little, because I do think that if you want to be religious, go ahead, just get it the heck out of my face and out of our politics.
Absolutely.
Live and let live, actually. But at the same time, I mean, what is a militant atheist really? How many atheist terrorists have you heard of who blow stuff up and say, I'll do it again if you don't meet my demands? How many times has that happened?
I can't. I was going to try counting them out on my hands, but you know what? I would have to cut off my fingers to do so, because it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, but to answer the other question, my relationships with religious people, most of the people I know who are religious are folks who have decided to get into Wicca and witchcraft and stuff like that. I mean, I have a lot of goth friends. Most of my friends are goth, and they've gotten into the occult and things like that. Not even freaky occult stuff, they light candles and sit around in the nude worshiping some moon goddess or something, I
can get behind that.
They're really, really, really non-intrusive, and they look at what I do and they go, whatever, and I can look at what they do and go, whatever, because we're very live and let live.
Yes.
So no big deal. I think the most I have to deal with religious people who aren't protesting LGBT issues, say Westboro Baptist Church type people, would be relatives on my dad's side who are still Italian Catholic. And even they are pretty live and let live, I mean, they look at my lesbianism and even my cousin's lesbianism, because I have a cousin who's also a lesbian, and they're like, whatever, we're family, So no big deal, really. It's just the politicians, who I don't have to deal with personally, that are really the problem. It's personally, on a personal level, I don't have any real problem with religious people at all.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I don't think we're going to get any more questions in the chat room, because the chat room moderator just came in and told everybody to not show body parts. I won't be very graphic. And
he said nipples, vaginas, balls, and penises.
Yeah, all those parts. Don't show those on camera, apparently, because here on the show,
it's a global message. It wasn't directed at us.
No, it wasn't directed at us.
There is one other question from Wise Guy Eddie.
Okay, last question. Okay, there it is. I know some atheists, ex-Christians, that seem to prolong spirituality. What are your thoughts?
Longing for spirituality. I mean, I get what's being said there. Is longing for spirituality. I kind of get it. I mean, goodness knows if I watch the right movie, listen to the right music, I can feel that feeling. I think Christopher Hitchens would describe it as the feeling of the numinous. And
I can just feel it within me.
Well, sure, and I've felt that before. And I mean, there's no reason not to want that, as long as you recognize that there is no actual, at least no evidence for the supernatural in this world, no evidence for anything that exists beyond what science can prove. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love it, absolutely love it, if it turned out magic was real. If I could fly under my own power, or use the force, or any of that stuff, anything even remotely like that, cast fireballs from my hands or lightning from my fingertips, that would kick butt.
I know, I love your ending, is like your zzz.
Yeah, but as near as I can tell, that stuff doesn't exist. As much as I might wish it doesn't exist. So, as much as you might wish for spirituality, wishing doesn't make it so, and you're just going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, unless you're ultra rich and you say, I wish there was a hamburger in my hand right now, and then 5 guys will run up and throw a hamburger in your hand. So.
And to Blaze, to Dark Firebrand, no, you cannot have a cookie. The cookie is mine!
Dawkins Dog has a question now.
Oh, does he? You have just...
Too low a midi-chlorian count,
yes.
Good question. I want to know the answer to that one.
Where did you get your midichlorians counted, and how much did it cost you?
Right.
Actually, we do need to get going. BionicDance, I do want to thank you for putting up with all the little issues that we've had tonight. We don't normally have this many issues, but we used to have this drinking game here on the show, sort of, that if we had an issue, everybody would drink. With the technical issues we've had tonight, I think everybody in the chat room would either be passed out or dead from alcohol poisoning. But hey, it's part of the show. If we don't have a technical issue, Packard Pokes At just isn't the same. But I want to thank you for coming, and please come back and visit us anytime. Join us in the chat room, or just come to the webpage and shout around a little bit. And we'd love to have you over there. And that's at facebook.com/Packard Pokes At, of course.